Take your time. Something's wrong. What am I doing? What am I looking? Hey, what's up, Case? I'm just hanging out, looking over some BS, man. Hopefully, you're doing pretty good today. Why did my music stop again? Freaking killing me. Let's see. What bill did I just do? What's up, Kurt? What bill was I just looking at? I'm just hanging out doing some research, guys. So I'm just shooting the breeze. Let me do something. What am I doing? I'm doing something. Swear to God, I am. Just looking at something else on YouTube. I'll kick that up. And the YouTubes. Yeah, that cut I did for Rich, man. Once I paint it, it'll look a hell of a lot better. You'll be able to see some kind of definition and stuff on it. But I got to get to finishing painting a bunch of stuff. I've got about 3 different plasma cuts laying around right now that I've got paint on that I just have to finish. So I'm trying to catch up in between damn work, kids, SDI, all the other stuff going on. I'm way freaking behind. I'm working on some cuts for some pretty cool dudes that a lot of you guys either follow or have seen that are going to be pretty damn jam up once I get them finished. And like I said, right now I'm just hanging out. I wasn't even planning on going live. I'm just kind of chilling, looking at some more of the bills that I still got to cover. Trying to catch up on where I was at. Freaking annoying as hell having to sit here and read this shit. Where am I at? No, because I was like, that was 3509 that I just covered. It's freaking insane. There are so many different damn proposed bills right now. You can't even stay on top of them. Yeah, 3509, the Safe Gun Storage Act is one I covered. The next bill. Yeah, I probably could, but what I do with most of these bills, which you guys have seen, I'll edit the bill, or not edit the bill, but I'll edit the existing law and then add it into the existing law. That way I can read and really see how it's going to affect things. So that's the hard part. But believe it or not, Casey, man, some of these that I thought weren't moving before, I went back and looked at them and they're moving again. Matter of fact, hell, let me do this. Just because. Let's see if this will actually half-ass work. Sometimes it's hit or miss. Let me see. Share that. All right, now you guys should be able to see where I'm at. Let's see. Let's go back to the one I just covered because it's been a little while since I've opened it. So let's go back to the safe gun storage shit. Because when we go in here, we can actually look at a bunch of the information about this bill. Overview. Yeah, Pramila Jayapal. She's a fucking idiot. Let's see what their constitutional authority statement says, just for shits and giggles. Because they got to put all this stuff out when they do these bills. They got to say how it fits constitutionally and shit. So, Congressional Research Office. Congress has the power to enact this legislation pursuant to the following. This resolution is enacted pursuant to the power granted to Congress under Article 1 of the United States Constitution and its subsequent amendments, and further clarified and interpreted by the Supreme Court of the United States. They have no fucking authority to do this shit. All right. Let's see. Besides a summary, it's different since I have the page split like this. Let's look at co-sponsors. Because we see when all the co-sponsors signed on to the bill. So see, this one's still catching it. The last person to sign on was on 3/31 of 2022. So relatively recently, you're still having co-signers to this bill. Oh, look, Representative Eric Swallowswell signed on. Oh, we're all going to be saved. Nuts. As usual with a lot of this is all Democrats, but I mean, damn. There's still people signing on. There'll be more people signing on later. And they'll do it like they did with this last bill, because part of this is in, or some of the language from this is in that Saving Our Kids or Protecting Our Kids Act. They'll add it all into like an omnibus bill and pass the shit. That's why I always say, whenever people are talking about, well, that bill's not getting any coverage or it's not getting any traction, well, sometimes it's not, but you have to be real careful with it, because sometimes when you think something's not getting any traction, you go back and look a little while later and there are more and more people signing on to it. Let's see. This is the next bill I'm going to cover. This is 3536. And it's just crazy, man. Since I started my channel, just on, say, proposed gun laws, even though I added a bunch of stuff in, a bunch of different laws into like one video, because there was like 4 violence against women deals. So I didn't go through and do each one as a single video, because there's only so much damn pain I can take. I've covered well over 100 bills that have been proposed, and there's still hordes more. All right, let's get past the summary and go to the text. Because the summaries don't do a whole damn lot most of the time. So to amend Section 923 of Title 18 to require an electronic searchable database of the importation, production, shipment, receipt, sale, or other disposition of firearms. This is our registry bill. This is another one. This is the second or third one I think I've covered. So yeah, this is for a complete searchable registry. These people are insane, kids. Let's see. Short title: Crime Gun Tracing Modernization Act. Let's see what they're doing in here, though. This paragraph, the term foreign intelligence information has the meaning given. See, why are we talking about foreign intelligence in a bill like this? So, not later than 3 years after the date of enactment of this paragraph, the National Tracing Center for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives shall establish and maintain an electronic searchable database of all records within its possession of the importation, production, shipment, receipt, sale, or other disposition of firearms required to be submitted to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives by persons licensed under this chapter. This is every fucking FFL record out there. Each licensee under this chapter may provide the National Tracing Center with electronic access consistent with the requirements of this paragraph to all records within the licensee's possession that are required to be kept under this chapter. Jesus Christ. So they want access to every electronic record that FFLs have. That's gunsmiths, that's pawn shops, that's retailers, all of it. Manufacturers, anybody with an FFL. So even your guys with curio and relics FFLs, where they're just basically trading in curios and relics for their own collections, they would have to maintain that electronic database, and the ATF would have to have access to it. Is what this is saying. Yeah, okay, I know it would be because of imports, but imports could be traced through basically commerce, not a foreign intelligence service. Anytime these assholes mention anything about intelligence services, they are talking about spying, basically. A licensee may voluntarily relinquish possession of any non-electronic record required to be kept under this chapter. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. 10 years after the date of the transaction, or in the case of paper acquisition and disposition books, 10 years have elapsed without any open disposition entries, with no disposition records recorded in the record. And they're trying like hell. Like I said, I'm just bouncing around, just doing a little research right now, just to try to catch up on things. So we're probably looking at a few more bills, just chilling. National Tracing Center shall have remote access to and may query, search, or otherwise access the electronic database described in this paragraph. May, with the permission of a state or political subdivision of a state, have remote access to and may query other databases, firearms registration systems, in other words, all of your concealed carry permits. ATF wants to be able to search those. And here we go. Or otherwise access the databases of firearms registration systems or pawnbroker records, systems of state or political subdivisions. Oh, man. This shit's fucking stupid. National Tracing Center may query, search, otherwise access electronic database described to obtain information related to bona fide law enforcement investigation by federal, state, local, tribal, or foreign law enforcement agency. To obtain information that is foreign intelligence information or necessary to understand or access the importance of foreign intelligence information. To obtain necessary information necessary during a compliance inspection of an active licensee who has submitted non-electronic records. Databases established under this paragraph shall be electronically searchable by date of acquisition or disposition, license number, information identified on each firearm or other firearm descriptor, including manufacturer, importer, model, serial number, type, and caliber or gauge. Shall not be electronically searchable by personally identifiable information. No, they'll have your name, your firearm, and everything else. They just can't say whether you're a fat white guy. If you have all my other shit, obviously you can find that in another database. That little thing is useless. Shall include in search results the entire contents of the relevant records kept by the licensee. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Oh, this stuff gets dumber and dumber, guys. Dumber and dumber. And for you guys that don't know where I'm at and where I'm looking at this stuff, this is congress.gov. These are all, believe it or not, these are all historical records now. Once anything is put into the library, this is basically the congressional library. Any documents, resolutions, treaties, you name it, are going to be searchable in here. It's a wealth of information that is absolutely annoying as shit. Let's look at something. Let's look, instead of the text, let's look at, so right now there are only 3 co-sponsors, which is nice. Let's look at related bills. Let's see what related bills they have. So the related bill is, okay, so the related bill in here is the Senate bill. Because that's the House bill. This is the Senate bill here. Let's look at this real quick. Patrick Leahy is the one who sponsored the Senate bill. Gee, old fat. Oh, don't say it, Coop. Don't say it. Let's see how many, see what the All right, so even though Senate bills only got 3 co-sponsors right now. Yeah, usual suspects. Sheldon Whitehouse, Miss Dianne Feinstein, and Kristen Gillibrand. And see, Kristen Gillibrand signed on to this on 4/26 of this year. So again, this thing is still smoldering. Believe it or not, again, this is another thing that they would just add into another omnibus bill like they did with all this other BS. Freaking annoying as hell. Let's see. Let's put this out here. We got 5 people in the chat right now. Do you guys have any bills you want to look at? If you've got an idea about one, just kick it in the chat and we'll take a look at it. What did I do with... Oh, okay. There I am. You've been lied to your whole life, fool. The right to beside you. That's why you always focus on what white dudes do. Fist in the air, screaming loud and being proud. When you are going through the motions, what you leaving out? What have you been accomplishing? Yeah, John Doe, unfortunately, they are desperate. And when they get desperate, they're kind of like any other cornered animal. That's when they tend to be the most dangerous. So let's see. What else we want to look at? Let's go back here. Let me go out to my main search. So these are the bills. And I went from oldest to newest because... where did I go? It's 35. Let me bounce back. Just to give you guys an idea of the bills that I went through. So the crime gun tracing modernization, that's the next bill I'm going to really break down and cover. So from HR 3509, here it is, because the first step implementation really didn't have shit to do with firearms. Why it comes up under a firearm search, it's kind of a offshoot of things, but it's not really firearm centered. So I didn't cover that one. I did do the extreme risk protection orders. So this is 125 bills in. And I know I've covered at least 115 of them. Although I've added, like I said, I've added in a bunch of bills together into a couple episodes of Paper Cuts. So technically this is I'd only be on like episode 49 or 50, I think, of Paper Cuts. Because I have added so many bills into the same videos. But yeah, 125. Yeah, so about 115 different bills that I've covered. A lot of them are represented, of course, by the plasma cuts that are on the wall and a stack of 2 plasma cuts I got laying around over here. Let's do this. Instead of oldest to newest, let's do newest to oldest. And let's see, because I didn't check the last couple days of last week. Oh, we got a resolution. Declaring gun violence a public health crisis. Let's read their resolution. Fuck it. Roll that beautiful bean footage. So text. La da da da. All right, so this is House Res 1165, declaring gun violence a public health crisis. Who do we got? We got Miss Escobar, Espelante, whatever the hell his fucking name is, any idiot. Dean, Mr. Cooper, no relation. Let me say that again. No relation. His last name is Cooper. The sumbitch needs to change his last name or grow a set of nuts. One of the two. Mr. Torres, I don't remember him offhand. Larson of Connecticut, he's another absolute idiot. Evans, I don't remember that one offhand. Watson Coleman, she's a freaking moron. Mr. Swallowswell is on here. Miss Lee of California, of course, Lee's on here. Okay. Let's see. Let me do one thing before we get into this.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They distort so question as if you Warshak. Horsemen, forcemen, and they've long been having the course mapped. It ain't that you can't see, cause you can find it, Holmes, it's that you don't want to. You cope by putting the blinders on. I've been trying to find some kind of way, but I've kind of known that y'all would rather whine and latch to nonsense cause your mind is gone. I can't save every person, and politicking is bringing the worst out the very earth. And every perk of living on this turf is being chipped at and nerfed, but I can't sit back and lurk. I've got to hit back, I'm certain it's my purpose. And it's a beautiful thing too. Hold up. Yeah. Hey. Looking at the technological advances.
I had to stick another show on for my son real quick. So let's look at this resolution, which you guys have probably looked at some already since it's already on the screen. Whereas gun violence has become the leading cause of death for children and as of the United States, according to the latest mortality data by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is an absolute horse shit lie. I think in this crap, they're actually counting kids from like 2 to 24. Last time I checked, from about 17 to 24, those are young people, young adults, not kids, not children. And they're acting like this is all kids who are finding guns or getting shot by negligent discharges and all this shit, when a lot of this is all kids that are out there gangbanging. I'm sorry, that's just the blunt way to put it, and it's the damn truth. Whereas there have been at least 2,062 school incidents. I like how they say school incidents in the United States since 1970, causing 683 fatalities, 1,932 injuries, according to Naval Center for. I'm gonna have to look them up. Let me copy them into a tab because that's gonna be a little bit of research to do later. And yeah, this is how I go about things. What's up, Warsaw? So I'll look them up later. Anytime I'm doing stuff like this, when they start throwing out crap, I tend to go back and research it. Yeah, you're right, Casel. That's why I said it's funny that they use incident, because they even count things that happen after school. No, Warsaw, I haven't seen your recent video, brother. I got to watch it. But they count things that happen like within a distance of a school or after school when no one's there, like a shooting in a parking lot, just all sorts of shit that they add on to try to pump numbers up. It's how you know that they're lying to your face if you're actually intelligent enough to look at it. Whereas more than 311,000 students in the United States have experienced gun violence since the Columbine shooting. And that's another. Okay. It's another freaking let's try to stack on a bunch of bullshit to pump numbers up. Whereas on April 16th, 2007, 33 people were shot and killed in Virginia Polytech Institute in Blacksburg, Virginia. Yeah, Warsaw, you're right. It was to defend ourselves against enemies, foreign and domestic. So against domestic threats like our government or foreign threats like an invading force. Yeah, our founders completely understood this shit. It's one of the reasons that our Second Amendment, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights were so well written that it has taken 200 and some odd years for people to get dumb enough to actually start to try to go against a lot of this shit, at least in any large numbers. Let's see. Whereas the United States has experienced hundreds of public mass shootings in churches, schools, concerts, movie theaters, including August 5th, 2012, 6 people shot and killed, Sikh Temple. December 14th, 27 individuals, 20 children, Sandy Hook Elementary. 9 Black Americans shot and killed, Manual African Church. 14 people shot and killed, Regional Center. (16) 49 individuals, 90% of whom were Hispanic, Pulse nightclub. And see that some of these that man, they go into these, especially now when they're mentioning all of these racist shootings, and they throw all these shootings out there, and they only mention ones that were committed by supposed white people. I say supposed because some of the ones they mention aren't white. And they'll mention the shooting but skip over the shooter when it comes to like Pulse nightclub, because that wasn't a white person. That was a Middle Eastern guy. That was completely Islamic terror. But they won't go in and mention that shit. And they damn sure don't think about that. If more people were armed, if these shooters try to commit these acts and they start catching a bunch of hot shit headed in their direction, then the next shooter's not going to try this shit. Right now, they can just try to run up a high score because people are absolutely fucking defenseless. At least a lot of people are. So let's go through this. October 1st, people shot and killed. That's a Vegas shooting. They don't mention Sutherland Springs was stopped by a guy with an AR, by a private citizen. Shot and killed Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. Okay, so they done broke into the Buffalo shooting. And see, they mentioned this. I love this. They mentioned racially motivated rampage. Okay. Pulse nightclub, they don't mention the fact that that dude was motivated by Islamic. Let me go back up to Pulse real quick. Buffalo Methodist Church, Sandy Hook. Oh, I skipped over it. Where's it at? Pulse nightclub. So, yeah. So 49 individuals, 90% of whom were Hispanic, shot and killed Pulse nightclub, Orlando, Florida, and what was considered the deadliest attack on the LGBTQ people in the United States. Again, they don't mention anything about the shooter's motivations or the shooter's race or ethnicity there. They don't mention, I think it was a black guy that shot at the Naval Center. Las Vegas was a complete, man. That shooting went away as soon as people started asking some very serious questions about it. Yeah, Warsaw, you're right. They're all copycats. I guarantee you, if we took away all the gun-free zone shit, if we let everybody have the right to defend themselves, the first couple shooters that tried something after that and got drilled within the first few minutes of that shooting, that would shut that shit down completely. Because these shooters are fucking cowards. Doesn't matter what color they are, what ethnicity, what race, whatever, they're cowards. The only time I've given someone a little bit of credit when they actually tried a mass shooting, and I know that sounds funny, were the guys who actually went to a police station and tried to go ahead and shoot it out with the cops. I'll give him credit because, hey, at least he went to somewhere where he knew guns were going to be there and he tried to make his stand. I'll give him credit. He didn't go to a gun-free zone, go shoot up a bunch of kids. Now, dude got tapped awful quick, and that's typically why you don't see people go try to shoot up police stations. But if they knew that in any area they went to, they were going to meet a level of resistance similar to that, yeah, they wouldn't be doing this shit. Yeah, and I think Las Vegas was a cover-up on some shit. There's still a lot of questions about that. Let's put it that way. Yeah, Warsaw. I wish we could hold the media accountable, but how do you hold them accountable? It's always with them this old saying: if it bleeds, it leads. And that's what they're going to put out. So how we hold them accountable, I really don't know. I don't know how we freaking. About the only thing that I could think is people shut them off. Turn them off. Don't watch them. Let them die off. They're useless. And yeah, Case, you're right, man. We will never get answers on Vegas. Never. There was some government involvement in that. Is my theory. Let's see. So they mentioned the 19 kids, 2 teachers killed at Robb Elementary. Okay, whereas in the United States, 111 people are shot and killed every day. 45,222 people dead from gun-related injuries in the United States in 2020, representing 43% increase from a decade prior. All right. The reason we have such an increase is one, we had an increase in suicides. 3/4 of that, or 2/3 of it, are suicides. A while back, and I can't remember how many years ago it was, they didn't add suicides into gun violence statistics or gun death statistics. They started adding in suicides to pump the numbers up. Gun homicides in the United States is at least 25 times higher than in other high-income countries. In other high-income countries, you are more than likely to get killed by other objects like bats, knives, trucks. So, yeah. The way they play with these numbers drives me up the fucking wall. And it's way over 54% of gun-related deaths were suicides in 2020. Well over that. There have already been 200 mass shootings in 2022, where 4 more people have been shot. And they aren't going to mention that the vast majority of those shootings were gang shootings like drive-bys, nightclub shootings, all that shit. Or at least 692 mass shootings in 2021, killing 704 people, injuring 2,839 others. Again, the vast majority of those are gang violence, inner city violence, drug crime. 61 active shooter incidents led to over 100 deaths in 2021. 52% increase from 2020, according to the Federal Bureau. They play with these percentages because if you just had 2 or 3 mass shooters and then the next year you had 2 more mass shooters, well, then that's the sudden increase. Never mind the fact that it's relatively low. Whereas in an average year, at least 10,300 hate crimes involve a firearm every year, more than 28 every day in the United States. Oh, again, they're playing with numbers. They're not going to mention an actual breakdown on this stuff. It's much like I listened to something today from Everytown because, believe it or not, I follow them on social media because I like to hear what these idiots are saying. And it's this video from this girl. She's doing this little poetry thing. She lists all these different things about gun violence. Every one of them she lists is completely unrelated. Like all the shootings in the black community, and black people are more likely to get shot than white people. Well, again, you're looking at drug crime, inner city violence and stuff, and you don't see that in other communities at the levels that you do as you see in communities of color. It's facts, man. If you want to argue with stuff, go to the Bureau of Crime Statistics, and you can look this stuff up broken down by race, geography, city, you name it. All that stuff is broken down in these crime statistics. Whereas every month, approximately 70 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. Again, they're inflating a hell of a lot of numbers right there. Whereas intimate partner violence is a serious public health problem and rates of severe physical violence and violence inflicted with a firearm is predominantly experienced by women with male partners. Yeah, all you guys are pieces of shit. Hey, Vanessa. Whereas 92% of all women killed with guns in high-income countries in 2015 were from the United States. Yes, we have more firearms than any other country per capita. And they talk about women being killed with firearms. Are we going to get into the honor killings where some dude just kills his wife because she looked at him funny and he just cuts her head off? Are you going to look at other countries like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, where a husband can just go kill his wife because she looked at another man? It may not be with a gun. He's more than likely going to stone her to death or fucking cut her head off. No, they ain't going to talk about that shit. Whereas in 2016, American Medical Association adopted policy calling gun violence in the United States a public health crisis requiring comprehensive public health response and solution. Now, yeah, Casey, you're right. The woman could get raped and she's going to get stoned to death because obviously if she got raped, it was her fault. Yeah, these people are something else. I love how they throw all this shit against the wall. And if you honestly go in and you break down their numbers, you find out just how full of shit they are. But most people aren't going to find the time or take the time to go in and actually break this stupid shit down. And the reason they want to declare this a public health crisis, there were 2 bills I covered. I've got the plasma cut for it right there. If they call it a public health crisis, that gives them a hell of a lot of leeway to do things without having to go through Congress. That little walk cost you $440, huh, man? Yeah. It would be real bad for me to live that close to a damn gun store. All right, let's see. Whereas 2016 American Medical Association president noted with approximately 30,000 men, women, and children dying each year at the barrel of a gun in elementary schools, movie theaters, workplaces, houses of worship, and on live television, the United States faces a public health crisis of gun violence. Again, full of shit, because the vast majority of firearms deaths are suicides. And Japan proves you can take every firearm away from people. If they're going to commit suicide, they are going to commit suicide. Japan has a way higher suicide rate than America. Whereas 2019, a study by Florida Atlantic University, Schmidt College of Medicine found that more United States school-age children die from guns than on-duty United States police or global military. Yeah. Hate to break it to you, but a lot of what they're talking about, especially when they say school-age children, you're talking about a ton of kids, and these are kids, these are fucking babies that are running around with guns gangbanging. It's not that a child finds a gun and is like, oh, look, daddy bang. Yes, that happens, but it's a very low rate that happens. Most of the deaths they're talking about, school-age children, shit like that, are gangbangers or suicides. Yeah, Vanessa, I mean, you can take, and that's the thing that pisses me off about these red flag laws. You think someone is a danger to themselves or others, you just take their firearms. You don't get them any medical treatment. You don't get them any sort of help that might get them over whatever issue that they're having. You know, we have civil commitment laws already, where if someone is a danger to themselves or others, they can be reported, they can be involuntarily committed. That way, you get that person into an institution where they can get help. That is much more effective than a red flag law. These red flag laws are absolutely idiotic, have no due process, and are absolutely unconstitutional. But again, we're talking about people that they're not worried about the deaths. All they're worried about is the guns. They don't give a shit about the kids getting killed. They don't give a shit about someone committing suicide. They want the object. They don't want to solve the problem. Yeah, and these red flag laws, literally anybody could report you. I could literally have someone watching this video right now, if we had red flag laws like they want. Someone could literally watch this video right now, take something out of context and say, that guy right there is a danger to themselves or others, and report me. And then I have the police showing up on my door with no notice to take all of my firearms. And then I have to fight for God knows how long and spend God knows how much money to get my rights back. Even though I'm seriously no danger to anybody that's not a threat to me. If you are a threat to me, I can be a very dangerous individual. If you're not a threat to me, I either don't give a damn about you, or I'm at the very least going to be cordial. Yeah, nothing's going to happen to the false reporter. Nothing. You look at the rates of women who accuse men of rape, and nothing happens to them. You know, the guy has to go all the way through the investigation, and in a lot of cases, the trial, to defend his life, and nothing happens to the woman. They go all the way through it. They figure out there's no way this guy did this. He's pronounced not guilty by a jury. Nothing happens to the woman. Yeah, Warsaw, you're right. If you And that is, you got to figure that's the way indoctrination works. That's the way our media works. That's the way our government works. They just keep telling the same lie over and over and over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, that lie, after years and years, suddenly becomes the truth. Although the roots of that lie have been decades or even 100 years old, they just keep building on it and building on it and building on it. And I was talking to a guy the other day, and I've said it probably on streams before. I've said it many, many times before to people that I know. When we gave the left the complete run of the education system in the United States, we pretty much doomed ourselves. Yeah, Warsaw, question everything, but they aren't people aren't taught that anymore. Kids aren't taught that anymore. I told my wife is a lot younger than me, and something was happening, and she was having some issues trying to figure something out, and I told her, and kind of a dick to say it, but it was true. When she went through school, she was taught what to think, not how to think. So there was never any critical thinking skills built into a lot of what she was doing. She was just told, this is the way that you need to think about things. Anytime someone tells you this is the way you need to think about things, you seriously need to question that person's motivations. Yeah. Yeah, we could seriously scrap the public education system. At the very least, we need to get rid of the federal Department of Education, and turn things back down to the states and localities and let them decide curriculums and teaching theories and skills. What school systems did you do when you were little? I'm assuming you asked when what school systems I went to. Some of the schools I went to were regular public schools. Some of the schools I went to were on military bases. I grew up an Army brat. I went to public schools that were overseas in Germany. Well, they were absolute government schools. It was on base. It wasn't on the economy. But I went down a way different road than a lot of people. I went through my stupid times where I wasn't paying attention to stuff. And I went through a lot of times where I was listening to some very influential people, some very influential libertarians. Neil Bortz was one of them. If you don't know who he is, he was a radio host out of Atlanta for a very long time. Had an awesome show. And he was one that really, was big about, how to think about things instead of what to think about things. Oh, yeah, man, Bush and these idiots. That's why I say we need to scrap it. At the very least, we need to get rid of the federal Department of Education. They need to go. That way, no president can sign bullshit like this, No Child Left Behind and Common Core. It's absolutely insane. And we keep doing this over and over and over again, and it stays insane every single time, and people keep doing it over and over and over again, letting the federal government dictate education. There's no reason the federal government should be involved in it at all. Yeah, Casel. Sometimes kids need to be left behind. Absolutely. This No Child Left Behind. I'm in a position right now, and I have been for about the last 10 years. Well, no hell over that. Shit. Well over that now. Where I interact and have a lot of dealings with kids that have just graduated high school in some cases. And a lot of them, they can't read, they can't write. And I'm not saying their handwriting's bad or they can't spell. I can't spell worth a shit. They absolutely cannot read. They absolutely cannot write. Spell check ain't helping me. It damn sure ain't helping them. Them stringing together a coherent thought and communicating a point is mind-blowingly painful because our education system has flat out failed them. Absolutely, unequivocally failed the shit out of them. Let's look back at this real quick. Leading cause of death. Whereas in 2019, Black children and teens had the highest gun death rate, followed by American Indian and Native Alaskan children and teens. Again, they're throwing in a couple of different things there that have no, well, yeah, Vanessa, you're right again. Yeah. With this resolution right here, again, they're talking about these deaths and children and teens, and they're not mentioning the actual causes of the violence. They're just throwing numbers. Whereas in 2020, guns became the leading cause of death for children in the United States. That is absolute horse shit. It's another absolute lie. In some of these cases, they come up with these numbers, talk about this leading cause of death bullshit. They're not even going off of just deaths that happen. They're going off of number of years lost of someone's life. It's this crazy shit that they go down. If you honestly break it down and we look at actual innocent children, actual innocent teens that were accidentally killed with a firearm or accidentally killed themselves with a firearm, that happens less often than a child drowning in a goddamn toilet in the home. They're constantly adding in the gang banging, the drug dealing, inner city violence, the suicides. They're stacking in all these unrelated things to pump numbers up. Whereas in 2021, the governor of New York declared gun violence a public health emergency. I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck what the governor of New York thinks. He's an absolute moron. Hey, Tactical, what's up, brother? I don't give a crap whether the governor of New York made some declaration. He's an idiot. He's an absolute anti-gun moron. Whereas in 2021, the mayor of Washington, D.C. declared gun violence to be a public health crisis and announced a whole government approach to combating the crisis. Again, the guns don't matter. If you want to solve the issue with a lot of gun violence, you need to get down to the actual root causes, breakdowns in the family, the economy, poverty, conflict resolution. There's tons of places you can go where you could actually affect the problem and effect change without stripping people of their rights. But they just want to go after the gun because to them, they want all the guns regardless. In 2021, the governor of Illinois declared gun violence a public health crisis. Well, yeah, you got fucking Chicago there, homeboy. Yep, it's a problem. But again, guns ain't the issue. 2022, officials in Cincinnati, Ohio declared gun violence a public health crisis. Mayor of Columbus, Ohio declared the Guilford County commissioners in North Carolina declared gun violence a public health crisis. Are we going to ask the dog catcher if he's got issues with guns? Because that's about where we're headed. Whereas the public health crisis is defined as meeting the following 4 criteria. The condition affects many people, is seen as a threat to the public health, and is continuing to increase. The condition is distributed unfairly. What the fuck? Oh, here we go to the equity. Again, if you want to solve a lot of gun violence, you have to get serious about it, and you actually have to address root issues. Breakdowns in family, poverty, drugs. If you could delve down into just those 3 issues, you could solve a lot of issues with people using firearms in evil ways, but they don't want to do that. Preventative measures could reduce the effects of the condition, and those preventative measures are not yet in place. Those preventative measures are in place. We call them laws, and they have been there for a very long time. If these laws were going to stop this shit, we wouldn't have the issue in the first place. Shit, Vanessa, there are a lot of people can't turn screwdrivers. What's up, Twisted Art Lady? All right, let's get in. Let's see. Whereas gun violence meets the criteria of a public health crisis, whereas in 1979, Surgeon General identified violent behavior as a key public health priority. Yeah, that's violent behavior, and he was actually getting to the point that we need to get into the root causes of the violent behavior. That's how you begin to affect an issue. Get into the root causes of it. The tools have nothing to do with it. You could take every gun out of the United States. People will just beat you to death with a fucking bat. Because there are violent people out there who will do anything to get what they want. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention outlines a 4-step public health approach to violence prevention rooted in the scientific method. Bullshit. Define and monitor the problem. Identify risks and protective factors. Develop and test prevention strategies, and assure widespread adoption. Again, defining this stuff as a public health crisis is a way to get around Congress, and agencies can just start making shit up. Declaration requires a responsive government to engage in significant resources to empower those communities that are impacted, be it resolved, declares gun violence public health crisis, supports a resolution drafted, introduced, adopted, cities, localities, urges coordinated whole of government effort addressing the gun violence public health crisis and ensuring the safety of all children. It's for the children. If we can save just one. No, you're not going to do shit. Urges the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to continue its work utilizing this 4-step public health approach. Collaborate with other federal government agencies. Urges Center for Disease Control and Prevention to expand its research and data collection capabilities pertaining to gun violence prevention. Urges Surgeon General to issue a report on firearms injuries. Commits to ending gun violence public health crisis, yada yada, enjoy life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So that's this resolution. Again, more of some of the most brain dead shit that we can get into, but that's that. Let's look though, because that was put out on So that was put out on the 9th of this month, this resolution by these idiots. And of course, it goes to the House Energy and Commerce Committee because the Commerce Committee can do a hell of a lot more. And then we've got another resolution providing for consideration of bill to authorize the issuance of extreme risk protection orders, providing consideration for bill 7910 to amend the United States Code to provide for an increased age limit, prohibition, modernization. So, yeah, that's, oh, God. All right, another resolution. This one was put out on the 7th, condemning the atrocity that occurred in Buffalo, New York. White supremacist conspiracy theory, reaffirming the House of Representatives' commitment to combating white supremacy, hatred, and racial injustice. Again, this is where they're pushing their domestic terrorism spying bills. That resolution is part of that. The Protecting Our Kids Act. I know Jared went over that. I went over it that day. That's got multiple bills built into that one bill. There was something else in that bill I wanted to go over when I just touched on it, and I can't remember what it was. I'll remember it one of these years. Give me just a second. Would you waste your time when you could be so much more, so much more, so much more? Why would you go and blind when you could be so much more, so much more? Oh, I had to put another show on for my son. What's for this saying? I can use a screwdriver, drill holes, concrete, Yeah. Vanessa, a lot of these people right now, they couldn't do any of that. They don't even know how to hold the damn drill, much less get anything else done. Yeah, it's you look at actual deaths of innocent children. Yeah, most are disease. Most are going to be like accidental drownings, stuff like that. Yeah, when they come up with some of these numbers, like that 30,000 number and shit back there, they're combining multiple causes of death, and they're just throwing all the numbers in one basket. They got to try to pump the numbers up. Let's see. I went through that. Multiple Firearms Sales Reporting Modernization Act. Let's look at that real quick. Like I said, I started the stream out, guys, just to hang out. I was just sitting here doing some research on some bills that I'm going to cover. And then we're just going off the rails and looking at a bunch of shit. So give me another second. Be right back. Hold on. I'm coming. Your art really sucks. The audience starting you up. Chamber of echoes ringing. Same branding with name changing and hearing opposing opinion and you malfunction. Characters non-playable. That's why you hate to move. And when you try to save a dude, they get to hating you.
They don't want to be saved, but one of these days someone will say they told you so. You're gonna get played, but that's your business. Don't get your wig split, acting an idiot. Back up a tidbit. This ain't a diss, kid, so list this. I wish this misfit would get pissed enough to get it, but he mad at all the wrong folk because he missed it. Yo, look, this ain't for sing-alongs. I don't want you to get it wrong. I know what you was tripping on. You've been lied to your whole life, fool. The right to beside you. That's why you always focus on what white
Oh, let's see. All right, so this is HR 7904. When was this introduced? So this was introduced on 5/27 to expand all firearms a requirement that federal firearms licensees report the sale of 2 or more handguns and the same unlicensed person within 5 consecutive business days. I'm pretty sure they already have to report multiple sales like that. Or maybe right now is if they buy 1 or more handguns in a single day. Now they're bumping it to 5 consecutive business days. Which again, why is that any of the damn government's business if I go and I buy, me and my wife, a couple of handguns? It's none of their business. All right, let's see. So this is a short bill, and that's all this one seems to hit on. Being enacted by the Senate, House of Representatives, multiple firearms reporting. So they go into Section 923. By striking pistols or revolvers or any combination of pistols or revolvers, totaling 2 or more and inserting firearms. Oh, yeah, you tricky bastards. So this is going to amount to any combination. So right now, if you buy, I think, 2 or more handguns, that has to be reported to the government. Why? Because they put that shit through. It might have been part of the Brady bill. I'd have to go back and look. But if you bought, say, a pistol and a rifle, that wouldn't be reported. If you bought 2 rifles, that wouldn't be reported. If you bought a rifle and a shotgun, that wouldn't be reported. Now, if you buy a rifle and a shotgun, a rifle and a pistol and a shotgun, all that has to be reported. So it's just more collection of data for them, basically. I know someone who bought, I don't know, a few different handguns one time. And the ATF showed up on their door a couple days later talking about, knock, knock, you bought these handguns, where are they at? We want to see them. Where did they go? All that. And you got to think about it. There are a lot of times where people will buy multiple guns because they get them for a good price, whether it's a pawn shop, anything like that, and then they'll take them and resell them. Not because it's their business, it's just some extra side money for them. With the bills coming out now, 1, they would now be straw purchasers who are doing that, and 2, they would be reported to the government just from them buying the guns if a bill like this passed. Oh, man. So just within a couple of bills just hanging out and chilling today, we have a bill for a complete firearms registry that we went through. We went through that stupid-ass resolution, which is a painful sack of absolute crap and lies. And now we have another reporting act. What the hell is a no pay until peace act? Let's see what this is. This is one of those bills that could or could not have anything to do with firearms. Why it pops up on a search for firearms. Who knows? Text. to reduce the pay of members of Congress when a mass shooting occurs in the United States and for other purposes. Oh, this is interesting. So this bill, if a mass shooting happens and Congress doesn't act, they want to start cutting Congress's pay. I'm down with that. I'm down with cutting their pay out completely. Make them serve voluntarily. That would be cool. Mr. Cleaver introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on the House Administration, in addition to the Committee on Oversight and Reform. So yeah, this isn't going to see the light of day. This is one gun control bill I know is not going to see the light of goddamn day. Anything that affects these people's money. Let's see. Okay. Reduction of pay. If during any month of a year a mass shooting occurs in the United States, the annual rate of pay applicable under Section 601A of the Legislative Reorganization Act of 46, I'd have to look at that, with respect to each member of Congress, for the year shall be reduced by an amount equal to the product of the amount equal to 1 month's worth of pay under such annual rate, and the number of months during the year which a mass shooting occurs in the United States. Yeah, this isn't going to see the light of day at all. These fuckers would go broke just because of Chicago alone, because they have mass shootings every single fucking day, much less a month. This section shall apply with respect to days occurring after the date of regularly scheduled general election for federal office held in November 2022. Okay. If a mass shooting occurs in the United States during a pay period occurring during the session of the 117th Congress, after the date of enactment of this act, the payroll administrator of each House of Congress shall deposit in an escrow account the compensation for such pay period of each member of Congress who serves in the House of Congress, and release amounts deposited in escrow account under subparagraph A to such member of Congress on the last day of the 117th Congress. Okay, so they're not withholding the pay completely. They're just sticking it in an escrow account, and then after the 117th Congress is over, they still get their money. Damn. I was hoping they'd be serious about this shit. All right, let's go find something else. So, got another resolution here. Expressing support for the designation of June 3rd, 2022 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Man, they push this shit all the time. Gun violence awareness. No, it's just violent people awareness, kids. The guns have nothing to do with making someone more or less violent. Prep for All Students Act. What's this one? It's only got one co-sponsor. It's on one committee. It's got one related bill. Let's look at the text. Yet I'm still spending my energy debating enemies that tend to be idiots, really inept politically, that don't have the depth or wit of me. Oh well, it'll be co-chance in hell, so riddle me this. How am I supposed to take you serious? All right. To create a council on emergency response protocols to ensure the establishment of accessible, developmentally appropriate, culturally aware, trauma-informed emergency response protocols in public schools, early child care and education settings, and institutions of higher education, and for the other purposes. Fuck me running, man. Let's see. The Age 21 Act, I'm pretty sure that's another Raise the Age Act. Federal Firearms Licensing Act. Pretty sure I haven't read this one either. I'm still working on the old bills. I haven't really gotten all the new bills yet. So right now I'm just screwing off. Hey, what's up, Heath? Let's see what this one's got. So right now it's only got 2 co-sponsors. Let's look at the text. To amend Title 18 United States Code to require licenses to acquire or receive firearms and for other purposes. So this is a complete licensing scheme. Oh, goody. Let's see what this act. In general, Chapter 44, Title 18 United States Code. All right, so they're adding a whole nother section into the code here. So, in general, except as provided in subsection D, it shall be unlawful for any individual to purchase or receive a firearm unless the individual has a valid federal firearms license. What's up, Solitude? Yeah, man, I caught part of Safety Doc's show. I was freaking studying and stuff, and I caught part of it, man. They did a great show. Which Safety Doc, man, he always does a good show. So he's which I got through his book and did the Amazon review for him. I still got to do his second book, and it's an excellent read. It really is. The School of Errors. So let's look at this. The Attorney General shall establish a federal system for issuing federal firearms license to eligible individuals for firearms transferred to such individuals. Let's see. Requirements. Individuals shall be eligible to receive a license if the individual has completed firearms safety training, a written test to demonstrate knowledge of applicable firearms laws, hands-on testing, including firing testing to demonstrate safe use and sufficient accuracy of a firearm. As part of the process for applying for such license, has submitted to a background investigation, a criminal history check of the individual, has submitted proof of identity, has submitted fingerprints of the individual, has submitted identifying information on the firearm that the person intends to obtain, including make, model, serial number, and identity of the firearm seller or transfer. So you would have to obtain a license for every single firearm. What's up, Too Many Choices? 40 gang in the house. So yeah, we're just hanging and chilling. Too many just looking at all these retarded ass bills. So this is for complete licensing. To buy a gun, to hold a gun, to handle a gun, you would have to get a license, and apparently a license for every gun that you own. A license issued under this system is available at a designated local office, which shall be located in both urban and rural areas. The Attorney General shall issue or deny license under this section not later than 30 days after the date on which the application for such license is received. Each licensee under this each license issued under this section shall be valid for the purpose of a single. Yeah, there it is. Shall be valid for the purchase of a single firearm, which shall be purchased not later than 30 days after the date on which the license is issued. These people are delusional. A license issued under this system shall expire on a date that is 5 years after the date on which the license is issued. The Attorney General shall provide, let's see, where's that? Okay, so the Attorney General shall provide notice of an application for a license under this section to the relevant state and local officials. Yeah, too many choices. Yeah, you can't tax one. You damn sure can't license one. I don't think I could read this shit in any accent and make it make sense, brother. And I can't do an Australian accent to save my damn life. Murphy's Law, what up, dog? Hey, Murphy, I don't know whether you want to be seen in here. That's up to you. I'll let anybody be seen in here. Whether you want to be seen in here, it's up to you. Matter of fact, there's still a link in the chat, man. Anybody could bounce in. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on, but yeah, anybody can bounce in. It's still same old same. Let's see. So where were we at? The Attorney General shall provide notice of an application for a license under this section to the relevant state or local officials. Background investigation. Let's get into this one. In general, before issuing a license under this section, the Attorney General shall conduct a background investigation on the applicant and deny any license if the recipient of the firearm would violate subsection G or N of section 922 or any provision of state law. Oh, you got the grill going. Good deal. All my yard birds are still running around right now. Probably harassing the neighbors at this point. Poses a danger of bodily injury. Information from state and local officials after receiving notice described in paragraph 2F, relevant state and local officials may submit to the Attorney General information demonstrating that the individual poses a significant danger of bodily injury to self or others by possessing, purchasing, or receiving a firearm. Yeah, you're cool, Murphy. Like I said, I wasn't even planning on going live today. I was just going live and goofing off. Denial, which is what these people are in, funny enough. The Attorney General shall deny a license under the subsection if the Attorney General determines that the applicant poses a significant danger of bodily injury to self or others by possessing, purchasing, receiving a firearm after examining factors the Attorney General considers are relevant to determine, including, fuck me, running these people are wordy. History of threats or acts of violence towards self or others. So if you had any sort of medical distress in the past, you would be disqualified from owning a firearm. History, use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force by the applicant against another person. How many of us have threatened to beat somebody's ass? Because I've threatened to beat a few people's asses. Well, it wasn't really a threat. It's kind of a promise. If they did certain things, they were going to get their ass beat. But how many people have threatened that? Yeah, you would be disqualified to own firearms in the United States if some shit like this passed. Whether the applicant is subject to or subject of or has violated a domestic violence or stalking restraining order or protection order. Those people are already disqualified from owning firearms in the United States already, you bunch of morons. All right. Any prior arrest, pending charge, or conviction for a violent or serious crime or disorderly person offense stalking, or domestic violence. There are tons of people that have been charged with disorderly offenses that aren't dangerous to any damn body. Any prior arrest, pending charge, or conviction for an offense involving cruelty to animals. Any recent acquisition of firearms, ammunition, or other deadly weapons, and involvement in firearms trafficking or unlawful transfers, and history of unsafe storage or handling of firearms. Fuck these people.
Yo, look, this ain't for sing-alongs. I don't want you to get it wrong. I know what you was tripping on. You've been lied to your whole life, fool.
Let's see. Judicial review. Any person denied a license may file an action in appropriate district court. Rules of construction. So this is basically where they say if anything in this was found to be unconstitutional, then the rest of the stuff still stays. Revocation. The Attorney General shall revoke a license issued under this subsection or under this section if the Attorney General determines that the licensee poses significant danger of bodily harm, self-injury by possessing, purchasing, or receiving a firearm. Now, remember, for any firearm you get, every single firearm, you have to get another license for it. I'm going to have a fucking stack of shit like this in my damn wallet. If they do it like IDs, I'm going to be 5 foot taller when I sit down. I'm going to have all this shit in my pocket. Well, yeah, choices you would be 100. I'll say this: choices you would be 100% right if these people gave a damn about the Constitution, and if the courts would uphold the Constitution. And if the courts would uphold the Constitution, we wouldn't have the 1934 NFA. None of the federal gun laws right now, if the courts upheld the Constitution, none of the federal gun laws, period, would be able to be enacted inside the states or be able to be enforced inside of the states. They wouldn't exist at all in the first place. But even if they did exist, they would not be able to be enforced in the states. States have their own constitutions for a reason. State constitutions decide state matters. Federal constitution decides federal matters. But you're dealing with a government that gives zero shits about the rules. They don't care. And if we're looking at the courts, honestly, if we're looking at the courts, I'd say this real quick, and I gotta check on my son real quick. When we're looking at the courts, the Biden administration has put more judges on the federal and district courts since Biden has been in office. He's put more judges on the courts than Trump did his entire time in office. So if you think the Ninth Circus is bad, it's going to get worse. Well, see, the 1934 NFA, one, when you really read it, maybe we'll do a stream on the 34 NFA one night and just walk through all the provisions and stuff in it. They expanded the use of the Commerce Clause to actually enforce these laws. And these laws have been enforced on individuals, not necessarily against just FFLs. Yeah, 2A for life all the way, baby. Let's roll it. But yeah, again, we're dealing with a government that doesn't give a shit about the rules. They make the rules up as they go. And if they pack the courts like they want to, even when those rules are violated and you go to court to fight those violations, the court is going to uphold what the government wants to do. Give me just a second. All right, my son's cool. He's watching ABC's 1, 2, 3s and reading, so he's jamming right now. Yeah, all federal gun laws, you're right, are based on the Commerce Clause. They expanded the Commerce Clause in, let me see, probably 27, 28, I think. And definitely the 34 NFA was the first real set of gun laws based on the Commerce Clause. And yeah, they completely expanded the government's power. And do any, I'll ask this to all you guys in chat. Do any of you guys remember what the original challenge to the NFA was? And I'll see whether anybody will answer that, and then I'll get back to this real quick. Return of firearms. A firearm removed under the procedures established under subparagraph C may be returned to the individual only if the individual's license is reinstated. Well, the 68 GCA is based on the same thing as the NFA. Believe it or not, we could knock out every single federal gun control law, period, if we could get a good challenge to the Commerce Clause. The original challenge to the 1934 NFA was a guy that went from like Ohio to Arkansas, two guys. Miller versus USA. Yep. Short barreled shotgun. That was the ruling from the court. They said that the reason they upheld that 1934 NFA was they said a short barreled shotgun, a shotgun with under an 18-inch barrel, had no serious military use, which is bullshit. But at the time, doctrine on shotguns in the military was a little bit different. But they said it had no military use. So therefore, they upheld the 34 NFA. In other words, if these guys had gotten caught with if they used the same logic, if they got caught with an MG42 locked and loaded, belt ready to ride, then the court, if they used the same logic, would have said, well, machine guns have uses in military service, so the 1934 NFA is bullshit, and these guys win the case. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't understand, because I knew Miller wasn't there when the case was argued. And I was looking at it the other night, and there were a bunch of conflicting stories. But yeah, he was never really represented. Only the federal side of that case was argued. And yeah, it's a bunch of horse shit. But I still think it's real funny that the original challenge to basically all gun control laws was whether something was useful in military service. And if it was useful in military service, well, then it was protected by the Second Amendment. If it wasn't useful in military service, then it wasn't protected by the Second Amendment. That was the court's whole decision there. Now they're arguing that AR-15s are weapons of war, so they're not protected by the Second Amendment. I'm sorry, go back to freaking Miller and read what the court said there. That's why I've always said that the Heller decision Scalia wrote was an absolute fucking punt. He did not completely decide that case. He didn't want to have to deal with it. So he wrote it as close to, well, we'll just get this through here instead of actually making a clear-cut definition on it. Yeah, too many choices. Yeah, you're right. By the standard in Miller, the only guns, the only firearms that the government could possibly regulate, and I will say possibly, could possibly regulate would be some AOWs. But here's the deal. in certain situations in military service, AOWs could definitely be useful. Yeah, I mean that was the only good thing that came out of Heller was he did get in and actually talk about the individual right. But he punted on everything else. And that's the thing that really pisses me off about it. That's also why I say we can't rely on the courts to defend our rights a lot of the times. They're not going to. Let's see, renewal. Let's get into this. The Attorney General shall establish procedures for the renewal of licenses that requires that the applicant satisfies the requirements described in subparagraph 2. So that's all the background check, fingerprints, all the other bullshit, the training, enrollment in RAP back. Fuck is that? The Attorney General shall enroll each individual who is issued a license under this section in the RAP back service. Record keeping. It shall be unlawful for any individual to sell or otherwise dispose of a firearm to a person unless the individual reports a transaction to the Attorney General not later than 3 business days after the date on which the firearm is sold or transferred, which shall include identifying information on the firearm seller, on the firearm transferee, including the make, model, and serial number. State license. In general, subsection A shall not apply to an individual in a state if the Attorney General determines that the state has a process for issuing a state firearms license to eligible individuals in the state with substantially similar requirements to those described in subsection B. Yeah, too many choices. That's the thing. There's a lot of times me, you, a lot of other people we're on the same page on this stuff. All of us may get hung up on one point or another. That's kind of our lane, that thing that just needles us. But we're all on the same page about this shit. We all pretty much agree about everything that we're talking about. We may just get hung up on one point here or there. Yeah, that's you're right again, too many. Everything in there is an individual right that is being protected. It's not granted, it's being protected as an individual right. And they argue that the Second Amendment is somehow this collective militia right, even though the text of the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people. When they're talking about the right of the people, just like the right of the people to speak or anything else, they are talking about the individual rights. So yeah, to be a leftist and to be against the Second Amendment, whether you consider yourself left or right, you have to do some serious mental gymnastics to put your head that far up your ass to think that the Second Amendment is not an individual right. I'm sorry, I've seen a lot of gymnasts and I've seen some real good circus freaks that aren't that damn flexible. They can practically turn themselves inside out, head through ass and then open mouth and then turn themselves inside out to make these arguments.
If it's one thing that I want you to see, is everybody is ignorant. It's only when you speak on what you don't.
Let's see, where are we at? Clerical amendment, section 3, point of sale background check. Section 922 United States Code is amended by adding at the end. Point of sale background checks. This is universal background checks. More than likely. I haven't read it, but that's more than likely where it's going. It shall be unlawful for any person who is not a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, licensed dealer to transfer a firearm to any other person who is not so licensed, unless a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer has first taken possession of the firearm for the purpose of complying with Section T. So yeah, that's universal background checks. In other words, no person-to-person sales. And if I do a sale, I sell a firearm to somebody, I have to go to an FFL with that person. I have to transfer that firearm to the FFL. The FFL has to run a background check on that person and then do a transfer to that individual. That's going to be based on a registry also, because how is the government going to know what I sell or what I don't sell? How are they going to know that firearm A that was in my possession last week is no longer in my possession? And understand, when we're talking about transfers, we're not just talking about sales. If I let a buddy of mine borrow one of my guns to go on a hunt, that's a transfer. A transfer is merely giving someone else possession of that item. I have transferred that item to them. That's why, like in, I think it's New York, if I went to a gun store in New York, they couldn't even hand me a firearm for me to hold, because that is a transfer. It's a transfer of possession. That's the reason they don't say sale, they say transfer. Ah, see, there are too many choices? You would think. But, and here's another case that has to do with the 1934 NFA. And this was, I think, before the 34 NFA. There was a farmer who grew more than his allotted acreage of wheat. And instead of having to buy wheat that year, he was able to grind for his own bread, feed his own animals with it. He was not participating in interstate commerce. So what the federal government said is since he wasn't participating in interstate commerce, he was actually negatively affecting interstate commerce. Therefore, the government still had the right under the Commerce Clause to regulate his activity. Fit that shit into your head. Because it's crazy. So that's like they'll say, Texas made suppressors. Texas wants to do their own suppressors. They want to make them in-state, sell them only in-state. They're not going to be in interstate commerce. What the government is going to do is say, if you're not participating in interstate commerce, you are negatively affecting interstate commerce. Therefore, we still have the right to regulate your suppressors. If they can't go that way, what they will do is say, since you are getting raw materials outside the state, then you are participating in interstate commerce. If they can't go that way, what they will say is the equipment you used was purchased out of state. Therefore, you participated in interstate commerce, and we have the right to regulate it. These people are, it's like a hydra. No matter how many heads you cut off the bitch, they come up with another one. Yeah, and then you're right. That was there. He was getting, subsidies and all that shit, but still at the core. And they've used this in other cases, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned them. They've used it in other cases as justification for the Interstate Commerce Clause. Since you aren't competing or you aren't, in interstate commerce, well, you're negatively affecting it, so they still have the right to regulate it. The Interstate Commerce Clause was never, ever supposed to be used that way. The Interstate Commerce Clause was only supposed to be used so that the federal government could come in and solve disputes in between two states. So Alabama and Georgia have an issue with one product that they're both dealing in. Alabama says Georgia's screwing them on a price or something like that. The federal government could come in and say, well, we looked at this and yeah, Georgia's kind of screwing Alabama, so you guys need to stop and, we can keep this moving. That's how the Interstate Commerce Clause was supposed to be used. It wasn't supposed to give the government a back door into every single fucking issue on the planet. And that's how it is used now. Yeah, it's why I say if we could get, I don't see why we can't challenge a lot of the things that the Fed's doing on the Interstate Commerce Clause itself. In other words, say them shutting down JSD, which I think JSD's back up and selling now. I don't see why JSD couldn't challenge them on the Commerce Clause because they are competing in interstate commerce, and the federal government is shutting down millions of dollars worth of interstate commerce. So they are negatively affecting interstate commerce. I don't see why they can't be challenged that way. But I'm a fat redneck Weldon guy, so maybe I'm, not seeing something. But we should be able to challenge it like that. Same with wide open triggers. Same with the FRT triggers. They are in the text. They don't fit the definition of a machine gun. They are participating in interstate commerce. You're shutting down millions of dollars worth of interstate commerce because those are sold across the United States. I don't see why they can't challenge it like that and tell the federal government to fuck off. Prohibition on transfers to certain unlicensed persons shall be or sale or otherwise disposition of a firearm to any person if such person does not have a license issued under section 932. A substantially similar state law as determined by the Attorney General during the previous 30 days or fail to report to the relevant law enforcement agencies that the sale or disposition described in subparagraph 1. So this is a complete licensing scheme where you have to get a federal license or a state license. You have to get training. You have to pass a written test, background check, fingerprints, and a criminal check. So the background check is not a criminal check. It's a background check for, I will bet my ass, any kind of medical issues, any sort of past issues where fights and shit like that. Yeah, see here. Part of the process for applying, submitted to a background investigation and a criminal history check of the individual. Yeah, choices, you're right again, man, 100%. And I can't see why we can't challenge a lot of the actions from the ATF and the federal government on the Commerce Clause. It's being used against us. I don't see why we can't challenge this shit on the same grounds. This shit's just insane. Oh, hold on. I wanted to see one thing. Summary. All right, so this doesn't have any companion bills yet. I'll guarantee you there's a companion bill coming in the House, but there's nothing out there yet. And again, if any of you guys want to look at this, man, Congress.gov. It's a pain in the ass sitting here reading this shit and going through it, but sometimes it's good to know what's coming down the pipe. Look at this omnibus bill they're pushing through now, the Save the Kids Act, and that's literally like, I don't know, what, 10 bills all wrapped up into one. And of course, all this stuff will pass the House right now. Nothing's getting stopped in the House. There's the raise the age. That's the Firearms Licensing Act we just went through. Accountability for online marketplaces. I know I've done one video on a similar bill already. So it's on one committee. It's got 3 co-sponsors, 2 titles, 2 actions, no related bills. And I'm just going to breeze through. We ain't even looking at the findings on here. The findings are absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Being patient with them, I try to. But you got room temperature IQ. Expecting a lecture from these idiot guys who got opinions not worth is what's under my shoe. Y'all tripping on truth when we call it out. Cause y'all people as goofy as I'll get out. If y'all with them and not with you, I'd sit out. Cause every rapper's on the list now, mad at a pitch count. Flowing heaters like my soul's beat up. No people focus on hoaxes in the shows he book. And I'm hoping to open doors and I got flows and such. But I know that I'll be opposed to the goal. I must start attacking. I ain't lacking my brains lashed in. Same way that I game is the same way up the back end. All the pain that I bring up is like the pain.
Makes digital instructions in the form of computer-aided design files or other code that can automatically program a 3-dimensional printer or similar device to produce a firearm or complete a firearm from an unfinished frame or receiver. So they're going after anybody. They're going after Gun Broker. They're going after anybody posting STL files. This would affect Odyssey because a lot of guys are posting their STLs on Odyssey on their channels. It's basically making them liable for anything that happens with those firearms, or if they do anything like that, then it's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, later, too many. Yeah, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on either. I'm still waiting on my wife to get here. If she doesn't get here in a few minutes, I'm going to roll out. But it is definitely a way to get heated, actually sitting here looking at these bills for sure. Blair Holt Firearms Owner Licensing and Record of Sales Act of 2022 by Mr. Bobby Rush. And that one's got a Senate companion bill. So that's the HR bill. That's the Senate bill. Let's see. I'm pretty sure this is like a lot of other licensing bills that I've covered so far, from like Sheila Jackson Lee and a bunch of others. So this one splits it up into certain firearms. Oh, this is gonna. There ain't no way we're making it through this one. Look at the fucking table of contents over here. This is going to be a long damn video when I actually get to this one. Effect on state law, certification of state firearms licensing systems, duties of the Attorney General, injunctive enforcement orders, inspection, regulations, criminal penalties, firearms transfers, failure to provide notice of change of address, child access prevention, that's a state or a safe storage built in. Issuance, revocation, renewal of firearms owner license. Let's look at this real quick. Hold on. To amended firearms licensing requirement. Subject to paragraph 2, it shall be unlawful for any individual other than a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, licensed dealer, licensed collector to possess a qualifying firearm on or after the applicable date unless the individual has a valid firearms owner license. There she is. You gonna be ready to go to Trev?
Yeah, I was gonna stop by there. Dang, gate shut.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the wife finally showed up. So, yeah, she's been horse riding. She's showing off now. Anyway, guys, I'm out. I'm gonna leave this one here. Now that she's here, I'm gonna get the kiddos ready, and we're gonna go to Buddy's house and go hang out. Now she's playing with the snake. Anyway, guys, I'm out. You guys take them easy. We will see you on the streams later. Be cool, perps.